Good morning. We've just hit 6 o'clock, so it's nice and early. So day two of our Joyflu challenge. Joyflu challenge. Feeling feelings, and today I'm addressing what are these feelings. What is she going on about? Today I am feeling and again quite content. I say that with a confused expression on my face because, for starters, I've now been up at 5 a.m. 2 mornings in a row. And why I'm feeling confused is that with everything that I've got on this week, which is quite substantial, I'm quite surprised that I'm not feeling quite overwhelmed. Maybe I'm in denial. That's quite possible. So it's yeah, look, it's great that I'm functioning really quite well and feeling good and content. So it's awesome. I'm also happy to be jumping on and speaking with you. So yeah, lots of layers there. Right. So what are these pesky or not so pesky feelings? And so in its most simplistic form, feelings are an internal sensation. Okay, so something physical happening in our bodies. And what we do is that we have labeled these. Okay, so I might have the feeling of butterflies in my stomach, and I have labeled that particular sensation as anxiety. Okay, or my heart might be really heavy and I'm getting tears, physical tears coming, leak from my eyes, and I may have labeled that particular sensation as sadness. Okay, so what's really important is to acknowledge is that when someone says they're happy, that their sensation, their physical response that they're having in their body isn't necessarily the same as my happy. Okay, or the guy walking down the street may use the same language, however, be having a totally different physical experience. So that's where feelings are quite complex. I was doing some Google research, and there's over apparently 6,000 words that could be used and be said to be these types of labels. Okay, so that's quite a lot. Okay, there's so many feelings, and it's funny because more often than not, I could be having a physical response, a sensation in my body, and there won't necessarily be a label or a language or a word that I can put to that. Quite often our language is limited in its ability to help us describe the sensations that we're having. A good example is quite often we use the word love and say, well, I'm feeling love. However, is that love of a particular object? Is that the love that I feel for my family and my nearest and dear ones, or the love that I have with an intimate partner? Okay, because they can all be drastically different, yet we're using the one word to label quite a vast array. for a particular feeling. So I guess what's really important to acknowledge is that feelings are unique to us. And so when someone says they're happy, more so in a coaching session, I will ask them to describe, well, what does happy mean to them? Okay, because it is different, different for all of us. So that's in its most simplistic notion. And what I found with researching feelings is that dictionary definitions versus psychology articles, all the rest of it, is that there is actually quite a vast difference when people are describing what feelings actually are. So I've just given you my perspective on what feelings are, and I would suggest that you have to think about, well, what are feelings to you? Okay, what does that mean? I quite often use the words feelings and emotions interchangeably, and I'm doing my very best to not do that. And the reason being is that, from my perspective, feelings and emotions actually are two very different things. Again, depending on who you ask or what resource you read, their definitions and descriptions of feelings and emotions are vastly different too. I think we have a long way to go before we get really good definitions and descriptions of these things that mean that we're all on the same page. Because we're just not. In terms of scientific research and whatnot around feelings specifically, we're very, our science is very advanced in, cognitive brain functions, health, physical bodies. However, I think we've got a long way to go in terms of our understanding of the complexities of feelings and emotions. So as I said, quite often I use them interchangeably, but I'm doing my very best to not. My favorite sort of explanation of emotions as opposed to feelings that I have come across is this work by a beautiful woman known as Stasia, and she's involved with okay, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to look her up and post a link as opposed to tell you what work she does. Where the idea being that feelings are these feelings that come up. And from her perspective and what she talks about with emotions is that if we've got stagnated feelings, feelings that we have either rejected, numbed out, not made valid, where we haven't processed the feeling. Okay, so, something may have upset me, and instead of actually allowing that upset feeling to be processed then and there, I tell myself, don't be silly, that's not something to be upset about. Okay, so that doesn't get processed. That feeling stays trapped in the body. Okay, and so her idea is that our emotions are actually those ones that we have stored over and over again. So if I've been upset numerous times over my lifetime but never actually allowed that feeling out and to be processed, that I'll have a lot of stored up upset, and that can then come out at any time as an emotion, and quite often is a lot more intenser. And the thing externally that activates that upset will seem like it's not that my response of upset is a lot greater than the event, than the external trigger that causes that upset. Of course, because I'm bringing up all my stored upset, not just the upset that's in measure to the external thing that's triggered that in the moment. Yeah, so I quite like that. I'm going to refer to her work a little bit more in a later live, where we talk about how to interpret particular feelings. Yeah, her work's really good. I will link you to it. Okay, so there's a few things that I want to touch on before I wrap up on this, although I have delivered what I wanted to in terms of what are feelings. And that is culturally in our society, we don't necessarily have great resourceful ways of dealing with our feelings and emotions. Definitely, we live in a society that definitely validates and celebrates more things like around, say, logical thinking, or as I like to say, things that happen in the head. And we see this in school, okay? And I also just, as I have developed my knowledge and awareness and my own relationship to my feelings, definitely start to notice where we invalidate people's feelings and emotions. Okay, so it's not intentional, it's unconscious a lot of the time. But if someone is upset and crying, is that quite often we run over with the tissues and go, there, it's going to be okay, and sort of basically talk them out of having that particular experience that they're having. Not so we think we're doing the right thing, I think we're looking after them, but what we're actually doing is we're invalidating their experience and making that emotion okay and safe to be expressed in that moment. I'm so grateful that I have the knowledge and the relationship that I do with feelings these days, so that I do a lot less of that. Okay, I still do it occasionally. However, I acknowledge that, and I quite often will call myself in the moment as I'm doing it and just go, oh, it's okay. It is so okay. What's really important is that all feelings and emotions are valid. Okay, they're all real for the person that's having them. Okay, I know personally, for myself, I used to think, oh, I'm overly emotional. Okay, or I feel too much, like it was a problem. Okay, and that sort of became part of the story that caused me to dull down my emotions and feelings, and numb myself out and not feel and not have that experience. And so that was required in order to function, either in family settings or in workplace and school scenarios. Okay, so it was about, oh, I'm having this feeling, I don't want anyone to see that, and doing whatever I could to avoid having that feeling, or at least an external where people could see that was going on. So this can be a bit of I know for me it was a big change, and it didn't happen overnight, and as I mentioned yesterday, it's still an ongoing thing. Anger is a very, very repressed feeling for myself, and it's only sort of over the last sort of 12 months with some strong awareness around that, that it's starting to show itself, however still very limited, and that's an ongoing thing, with working around that. Where I say all feelings are valid, as are the parts of ourselves that have repressed, rejected, and numbed out as well. Okay, they're just as valid. They're there of service to ourselves and our particular situations at that time. So I might end it on that. Yeah, cool. All right, so before I wrap up, just some little things to contemplate for today before tomorrow. So just how resourceful are your feelings? So all feelings are valid, but how resourceful they are is something that we can sort of sit with. I wouldn't be too judgmental. As I said, like I could get annoyed that I'm not good at doing anger, or I could go, well, there's a reason behind that and it's okay. Okay. But also just noticing, well, how do particular feelings feel to me? What are the sensations that I have? As I mentioned, so for me, anger, when it does come out, quite often there's a lot of pressure in behind the eyes, and more than likely there'll be tears, particularly if I'm expressing it in and then in the moment. And then quite often there's anger and then there's frustration shortly followed, because I've got this perspective, well, anger coming out as tears could be deemed as weak. And so it's multifaceted. That one for me. For joy, as an example, there's a lot of lightness. Okay, obviously physical reactions such as a smile, and just a general all over body feeling of well-being. Okay, that's generally my joy sensation. Your joy sensation could well be different, or maybe joy is something that you don't have a relationship with, just as anger is a feeling that I don't have a great relationship with. Okay, there's no judgment. It's just taking notice of what the physical sensation is for you against particular feelings, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant. Okay, is something to sort of contemplate, and I'll continue on this discussion tomorrow. So thank you for listening. Thanks to all the guys who jumped on. I really appreciate you all. So have a great Tuesday, and I will speak with you tomorrow morning.